Good morning. All right. Sorry to keep you waiting. Let's begin. So Bharata used to be the emperor of the world, the son of Rishab. And when he finally, towards the end of his life, did his spiritual practices, he made the conscious decision that he should take care of an orphan deer. And that postponed his yogic success for a bit, but would increase it dramatically. So after he died as Bharata, the emperor, he became a deer and had a short life as a deer. And after that, he became a human again, where we are at the story now. But kind of like a animal human, where he seemed to be a retard. And he seemed to be really very like a bull or something, really strong like an animal. Not particularly, no social interaction skills, seems like he's deaf, seems like he's mute, stuff like that. He had a very good father, but he couldn't learn anything from his father. His father died, and then he couldn't get a job anywhere. His brothers employed him as a scarecrow in a field. And then while he was scarecrowing in the middle of the night, one night he got kidnapped by a gang that used him as a human sacrifice. But when they attempted to sacrifice him, the goddess burst off the altar and killed all the gangsters. Now, that's where we were last week. Now, he just wanders away from that scene. I actually was imagining what the people in the village must have seen the next day. This bloody scene at the temple of Kali. But since they were all gangsters, they probably imagined that they had some sort of a disagreement or something. So now we pick up the next. Sorry for the sound effects if you're getting... Oh, maybe it's a little too low, actually. Not enough sound effects. So let's start with the material. Now we're in chapter 10. Okay. Ata Sindhu Sovarapate Rahuganasya Vrajata Ikshumatyastate Tatkula Patina Shibiki Vaha Purushana Veshana Samaye Daive no pasadita sa dvijavara upalabda Esha piva yuva samhanango gokara turam vodhum alam iti Purva vishti grihita sahagrihita prasavam Athad artha uvaha shibikam sa mahanubhava. The great sage Bharata then wandered off to the shores of Saraswati, where the king of Sovira, named Rahugana, happened to be traveling. The leader of his troop was looking for a new person to help carry the king's palanquin. When he chanced upon Bharata, he thought, "Done! Found! He has a body like a bull, strong, young, and healthy, perfect for carrying things. Violently, abusively captured, that great being carried the palanquin along with some others who had already been enslaved. So, next up on Bharata's list of things to do, become a slave. First up, become the emperor. Second up, become a yogi. Third up, become a deer. Fourth, become fourth, become a scarecrow. Fifth, a human sacrifice. And sixth, a slave. So also, this got me thinking, the world sucks all the time. That's what got me thinking. Generally, we or I have the sort of notion that right now sucks. Everybody's a jerk right now, but people were pretty awesome at other points in history. And that's kind of the idea that you get from the yugas, that in other yugas people are much, much better. And it's not really identified what yuga this is happening in. But people sure are acting almost exactly like the way they act now. So it kind of makes me think, I guess people are always like this. Kidnapping people, enslaving people, tormenting people, insulting people. So that's interesting. It's not like all these stories happen in Satyuga and Satyuga. Everybody's nice to everybody. So there's this king going around his kingdom on his fancy cart, his Ferrari palanquin, and making blocks tremble with his engines. And then he's, you need people to carry the palanquin. Apparently, maybe they lost one of them, or it was going very far, and the guys got tired, and they wanted some help from a new person or something. So the people who had already been enslaved, they were asking, "Can we get somebody else to help us?" So the manager of the whole traveling troupe, he starts thinking, "Okay, we got to pick somebody up, somebody new." And that's when he sees Bharata, and when he sees Bharata, he thinks alam, which means perfect. It means that's it. It's done. I found it. End. Alam means the end. Sometimes alam is expressed in a negative way, which, like, this is too much. If you want to say enough already, right? Then you say alam, alam. But you can also say, ooh, that's enough. So alam is a word like that. It means this is it. I found it. Here, in this sense. He says, alam, I found a guy who's perfect for carrying stuff. That's what everybody always thought about Bharata, isn't it? About Bharata now that he's not Bharata anymore, but he's some Brahmana's son, retarded Brahmana's son. How ironic. This guy's good for picking up stones. This guy's good for being a scarecrow. This guy's good for being my punching bag. This guy's good for whatever. And just some low dignity task. So he thought, what did he think? He said, Gokaravat. He's like a bull or a donkey, this guy. Look at him. He looks like an animal. He says he's young. Yuva, he's young. Piva, he's strong. And Samahanganga, he's healthy. He's my man. I found him. So instead of saying, excuse me, sir, I'll give you 20 bananas if you pull this thing, he just says, you, over there. Get over here. Get that man. And they just arrest him and say, you're pulling the king's, you're carrying the king right now. You're lucky. Get in line. So apparently that's the way this king thinks it's okay for things to run. Rahugana, kind of sort of like Rahu, but Rahu, not Rahu, Rahu. Rahugana probably means something like ferocious leader, or the guy who has a ferocious army. That name, Rahugana. The guy who has a ferocious army is the king of a country called Sovira, Sindhu, which is on the border of India, the western border where the Sindhu River is. And it's where the old river Ikshumati was, which is another name for Saraswati. But these are from ancient rivers. These are ancient rivers that are dried up, aren't there anymore. But Sindhu, of course, is still there. So this also means the story is taking place in West India and Gujarat area. Okay, anything else interesting? Nope, that's pretty darn interesting. Oh, also it says, so they mentioned that he's Mahanubhava, a very great being. He's a very, very great being. He's a very, very, elevated. Anubhava means in the sense of having experience, maturity. So he's a very great being in that respect. But they captured him as if he was just a donkey. This is also the lesson here is all these people that we boss around and we exploit, they're all very great beings. And it's a very bad crime to violate a great being. And everyone is a great being. So it's really kind of a shame that we are kidnapping and enslaving and torturing and tormenting and insulting each other. It's not Pakistan. Oh, maybe it is. I'm not sure what the current border is, but it's not in the mountains. It's the river. Okay, so let's go. We'll read this one and then start on the next one. The great sage Bharata then wandered off to the shores of Saraswati, where the king of Sovira, named Rahugana, happened to be traveling. The leader of his troop was looking for a new person to help carry the king's palanquin. When he chanced upon Bharata, he thought, done, found. He has a body like a bull, strong, young, and healthy, perfect for carrying things. Violently, abusively captured, that great being carried the palanquin along with some others who had already been enslaved. Grihita, that's also some people think is the etymology for the word graha. Grihita means to forcibly capture something. Next. Yadahi dvijavareshu. Hang on a second. Yadahi dvijavarayeshu matravalokanugatir. Ishu matravalokanugatir. It's an important thing about the way that he walks. Na samahita purushagatis. Tada vishamagatam swashibikam rahugana upadharya purushanadi vahata ahahe vodara sadhu atikramant kimiti vishamam uhyate yanam iti. But the great sage did not walk the way that most people walk. He would take a step only after checking a meter ahead. Wondering why his palanquin was lurching around, Rahugana called out, "Hey, carriers! Why can't you do anything right? Why are you so clumsy with my vehicle?" So that's interesting. So it says, Nasama hita purushagati. The Mahanubhav, the great person, this is something real. The great person like Bharata, he's out of step with the world. This is one of my favorite songs from my childhood, youth. Out of Step by Minor Threat. Really, that's a fact. That spiritual people are out of step. And they just don't fit in the same puzzle as everybody else. Hence you find the 12th house, the 8th house, everything except the 4th house really. This very spiritual places are also very solitary or private. So it says here that he's out of step. He's a great sage. He doesn't walk the way people walk. But that literally also means he literally doesn't walk the way people walk. How does he walk? Eshu matra loka anugate. First, he looks ahead about a meter. Ishu matra. That means the length of an arrow, which is about a meter. So he looks ahead. On the ground. He checks the ground. Where he's going to put his next foot. And after he checked it, then he puts his next foot. So his walking is real slow. Now, why is he looking ahead to check where he's going to step? What do you guys think? The king couldn't figure it out. And the reason the king couldn't figure out is going to be mentioned. The other people with him, around him, couldn't figure out what the hell was wrong with the guy. They think he's got some kind of OCD because he's scared to walk. And he walks like a Frankenstein. Like, why is he stopping every step? Every step he stops. Then he looks, then he steps. Then he stops, then he looks, then he steps. Why would you do that? What do you think? Why would you do that? Why is he doing that? Don't forget who his father is, by the way. His father is Rishabha. And don't forget Rishabha is the founder and inspiration for Jainist religion. Doesn't want to kill bugs, says Jonathan. Samurai says doesn't want to kill any living thing. That is correct. That's correct. You guys understand yogis, but the king doesn't understand yogis, and these other people, they don't understand yogis. So they just think, he's got OCD. So the king gets upset because his palanquin is going... And he says, hey, Vodara. Hey, carriers. Sadvati kramata kim. Why don't you do it right? Or why can't you do anything right? Vishamam uhyate yanamiti. Means, Vishama, don't shake my chariot. The king's getting a little bit annoyed. Now let's see how the other guys feel about this. Ata ta Ishwaravacha sopalambam upakarnyopaya turiyach chankita manas tam vigyaptim babhuvu. Hearing the annoyed voice of the king, they became terrified of the fourth remedy and submitted their report. I can just visualize this as a Bollywood movie. It really lends itself well to that format. Like, I'd love to see this story incorporated into Mahabali. Or is that what that's called? No, what's it? Bahubali. Bahubali 3. Atata Ishwara Vacha Sopalambam. Upalambam means very annoyed. Ishwara Vacha. Ishwara means God or Master or Lord. So Ishwara Vacha, they heard the words of their God, the king. That were upalabdam, which means annoyed. When they got into their ears, upakarnya, then they became scared. Shanka manasa. They become scared of something called upayaturiya. And so, which means the fourth remedy. They got scared of the fourth remedy, and so they gave their report, Vigyapti. Those of you studying the Bhakti or Samrit Sindhu remember that one of the angas of Bhakti is Vigyapti, to give a report. So it has this kind of flavor to it. You're reporting just to a superior kind of feeling. So at this point, we should take a slight diversion to explain the fourth remedy. The word upaya is often used in astrological circles, not really in the circles that I frequent too much, but in the more like deep in the streets. Home, bread and butter, like popular astrology in the streets of India. India's pop astrology, like the equivalent of like the Cosmo astrology in India, it like constantly talks about upaya. And then you see the people walking around like 16 rings on 10 fingers, for each one for a different planet. Like 12 earrings, stuff like that, with different gems on them. Because everybody's telling them what upayas to wear, to do. And then you got also these brahmanas that are getting paid to do these yagyas as upayas. Upaya, it means how to fix something. So in Rajniti, or in politics, there are 4 upayas. There's 4 ways to fix a situation. And these are very, very important. Because politics are not just something that happens on an international scale. Politics happen in your kitchen when there's 2 people in there. Politics happen all the time whenever there's a poll, whenever there's 2 people. So it's pretty important to learn politics, and therefore, even if you're not a king, it's pretty good to know the basics. So here are the 4 remedies. The first remedy is sama, second is dana, third is bheda and danda. Sama, dana, bheda, danda. And that's the sutra, sama, dana, bheda, danda. And then the teaching about it works like this. Sama means you harmonize with somebody. You get along. You figure out how to get along. So if there's a problem with somebody, you have to do sama. Sama means it means like to sing together, just to achieve a harmony, to find a frequency together that sounds nice together. So what that means, like, let's say if you have a disagreement about what to watch on TV, then you talk about it. Okay, can we watch your thing for 5 minutes and my thing for 5 minutes? You come up with some way that both of you can be happy again, and you can work together. That's the first remedy for problems, for political problems. I think this land is mine, you think this land is yours, let's come up with what are we going to do about that. The first resort, the first remedy is make some agreement. Can you explain to me why this land is yours? Maybe I'll agree. Maybe I'll see your, or can we, maybe you take that part, I'll take this part. Okay, you can have that land, but can you give me... actually, then the second remedy is dana, which kind of is like bribery or seduction, or it's kind of like remuneration. It's a step down from agreement, but it's almost the same thing. It's agreement where some kind of extrinsic negotiation is involved. And people resort to this next. If you let me watch TV, I'll let you stay home from school tomorrow. If you let me this, then I'll give you that. I know you don't want to come into the office and work 9 to 5, but if you do that, I'll pay you $40 an hour. So that's dana. It's a way of getting somebody to do something that they don't want to do. You give them something they do want. in exchange for doing the thing or being the way or whatever that they don't want. If you give us this land, then we'll give you all this oil. No, okay. That's dana. So it's a step down from sama. You try to solve problems by sama, by agreeing. But when you find that you can't agree, you kind of bring other things into the discussion. Then if that fails, then the next remedy is even more negative or even more difficult or deleterious. This is called bheda. Bheda means separation. So the third remedy is you just try to get rid of the problem. Not by destroying the problem or the person, but by just getting distance from it. Separate from it. So, like using the television example, you want to watch a game show and your friend wants to watch a soap opera, and you try sama about it, but nothing is working because they're both on at the same time, etc., etc., etc. Sama doesn't work. It's just not working. You can't come to a harmony about what you're going to watch on the TV, so you would escalate it to the next stage, which is dana. I'll give you my iPhone for a day. So whatever, it is. Whatever it is that you could seduce that person with, you offer that in exchange for this thing that you want. That keeps the person happy, and you get what you want. But it's a step down because now you have to pay. You have to give something. So it's not as advantageous as sama, but it still works. The third thing is, if that doesn't work, then you just have to either leave or kick them out. That's bheda. You have to go find another TV, or you have to kick them out and tell them to go find another TV. So like if you're in a community and you're trying to have something go a certain way and they're like, they won't agree to it, and then you try to figure out some way, I'll provide you with this services if you do things differently, blah, blah. They don't want that either, then you just have to leave. It's bheda. Or if you're the minority, then they kick you out. That's what happens. Oh, here's a fellow astrologer. Okay, let's all agree with each other. Oh, but there's this thing we can't agree on. Okay, let's entice them. We have a big community with lots of followers and everything, and if you cooperate with us and are a part of us, then you'll have access to all that glorious stuff, But if that doesn't if the enticement doesn't work, then what? All right, get the hell out of here. Good luck on your own. Goodbye. We don't want to know you. As a matter of fact, take down that video that I did with you. That's called bheda. So what's coming next, boys and girls? It's kind of dangerous. What's coming next? This is what's coming next. The fourth one is what these palanquin carriers are scared of. Because the king is already annoyed, so it seems like he's already not interested in sama or dana or bheda. He's already angry. So the fourth one is called danda. Danda means a club, a staff. It means you hit it. If it won't ostracize, then you hit it. So it's the fourth resort in politics is physical conflict. It's the worst resort because it's the most expensive to you and to your society, to everybody, not just to the person that's getting hit. And it has the most risk involved. Sama has no risk, so you just always should try to resolve everything by sama, and it is worth it for you to bend enough to be in harmony with the other person, because that is relatively little expense compared to what can happen from these other remedies. Seduction, you're going to run out of resources. You keep paying people to do stuff for you. Ostracized, you're going to have nobody around. You're going to get rid of talent. You're going to get rid of people. You're going to get rid of taxpayers. You're going to get rid of etc. You're going to get rid of friends. Fighting is the worst. People are going to kick your ass too. You're going to fight with somebody, you're going to get hurt. You want to get hurt? So, in violence, you want a society with this, everything is filled with violence, but it is a final resort. If somebody just will not stop being a problem, then you have to, and it starts with the threat, and then that also escalates from the threat of violence to the actual violence. It shouldn't just immediately go to the actual violence. But you have to threaten with some kind of punishment, and it doesn't necessarily have to be physical. So it's like the inverse of, actually the third and fourth remedy are the inverse of the first and second. Agreement is the inverse of beta, of separation. So sama means coming together, separating means coming apart. So if you deal with the problem, the positive way to deal with it is come together with the person. The negative way to deal with it is get away from the person. But it's basically the same principle, either coming closer and getting away. And then the dana and danda are opposites. So the secondary way of dealing with it is either positively to pay them or negatively to take from them. Give them something they want or give them something they don't want. So, you don't want to follow the rule of not carrying a gun in my country? Okay, I'll pay you to not carry a gun. I'll give you remuneration. I'll give you a bonus, whatever they call it in government. Or, I will. You can't carry a gun, but you could carry a knife. You give them something else they want. That's dana. Seduction. You entice them to do something you want. But the opposite of that is, you don't want to do this? You better do it. Otherwise, I will do something you don't want. I'll put you in jail. That's danda. I'll put you in jail, or I'll kill you. I'll cut off your fingers or something. So that's danda. It's the opposite of dana. So that's your lesson on politics for today. So these guys are like, this king, he's angry. It means we're going to get punished, and we don't want to get punished. Make sense? Now, number 4. Let's just review, because that was... The great sage Bharata then wandered off to the shores of Saraswati, where the king of Sovira named Rahugana happened to be traveling. The leader of his troop was looking for a new person to help carry the king's palanquin. When he chanced upon Bharata, his name is also never mentioned. It's just hard to write in English without mentioning a person's name. But Bharata's name, he's not actually called Bharata in the Sanskrit, because he's not Bharata anymore. He's another person. It's his third incarnation. But for the ease of writing in English, which is not as easy to write in, I'm just putting in that word Bharata. Maybe I'll figure out a way to take it out later. When he chanced upon Bharata, he thought, done, found. He has a body like a bull, strong, young, and healthy, and perfect for carrying things. Violently, abusively captured, that great being carried the palanquin along with some others who had already been enslaved. But the great sage did not walk the way most people walk. He would take a step only after checking a meter ahead. Wondering why his palanquin was lurching around, Rahugana called out, "Hey, carriers, can't you do anything right? Why are you so clumsy with my vehicle?" Hearing the annoyed voice of the king, they became terrified of the 4th remedy and submitted their report. So this is their report. Dear sir, Navayam Naradeva Pramata bhavan niyamanupatha sadveva vahamana. Ayam adhunaiva niyuktopi nadrutam vrajati nanena saha vodum uhava vayam pariyama iti. What they said is, it's not us, oh God, oh man God, oh human God. They call him the Naradeva. That's a word for king, but it means the man God, the human God. The king is described as the human God. I like man God, it's shorter. Oh man God, we are not drunk. Pramatta, not pramatta. We're not drunk. We're not negligent. We're not spacing out. It's not us, Navayam. It's not us who is drunk, is what they're saying. Or it's not us who is out of it, who's spaced out. We're not the ones. This is the way the kids always respond to the parents, that when they're angry. Wasn't me. So they say, Bhavan niyama anupata sadveva vahama. We're doing good. We are good. We're sadhu. And we're carrying your chariot, your palanquin, sadhu. We're carrying it the way that we're supposed to be carrying it. Bhavan niyama anupata, because we follow your rules. This is a good, old-fashioned lackey. Good old-fashioned lapdog. Just bowing at the master's feet with his tongue hanging out. It's not us, it's not us, it's not us. We're doing everything you want. Don't punish us. But this guy, this one here, adhunaiva niyungto, the one we just got. That guy, nadrutam vrajati, doesn't walk right. Nanena sahavodhum vavayam paryamana. We can't do our job right with this guy. So they all blamed it on Bharata, not inaccurately. Oh man God, we follow your rules. We carry you very correctly. The problem is just this new person that joined us just now. He won't walk right, and so alas, we can't work well with him. Now the king, again, this is very Bollywood. This really translates well into Bollywood imagery. Samsarjiko dosha eva nunam ekasyapi sarvesham samsargikanam bhavitum arhati nishchitta nishamya kripna vacho raja rahugana upasita vridhopi nisargena balatkrita ishat uthita manyur avispashta, that's the right word. Avispashta brahmatejasam jata vedasam iva rajasavritir matiraha. So the king thinks, when he hears their pathetic pleas, he realized the principle, quote, a conjunct flaw is when a flaw in one thing creates flaws in whatever it conjoins. Although he was very educated, his inherent nature made his anger flare up a bit. His education was like a fire covered in ash, as he called out to Bharata, whose spiritual potency was also like a fire covered in ash. So let's just pull this statement apart. This is really interesting. So this is our first look at the king himself, his mind at least. And it's showing that Rahugana is a person that likes to think. It doesn't mean that he thinks very well, because he's very happy to just capture people against their will and force them to work for him. So he's a guy who thinks slavery is just great. But that doesn't mean he's not intelligent, and it doesn't mean he's not educated. It just means that he's not a very good thinker. He doesn't think well, but he has a lot to think about. So he has received a lot of education. That's why he's a king. Kings receive tons of education, but they're not brahmanas because they don't really sort it out. So he has a lot of education, so he sees a lot of things. So when he hears these guys, he says, that's what I learned. So he's a fundamentally intelligent person. And Bharata will appreciate that about him, or somehow Bharata knows that, or detects that, or smells that in the subtle behavior from the king. So what he thinks is there's such a thing as a samsargika dosha. He learned this from his teachers. Samsargika. Samsargika means that something that comes along with something else's nature. Samsargika dosh. And he said, now I see. This is exactly a perfect example of samsargika dosh. And he said, and he remembered the definition of the dosha, the flaw. Ekasyapi sarvesham. Samsargikam bhavitum arhati. It says samsargika, a conjunct flaw, samsargika dosha, is when there's a flaw in one thing that spreads or invokes flaw in anything that it contacts. So, for example, a virus, the spread of a virus is a samsargika dosh. But also, if you have, say, a clock and one of the wheels breaks or one of the pins breaks, that will also create a samsargika dosh. The whole rest of the clock will fail. It's political season. So he's thinking, this is a perfect example of a samsargika dosh. One of the cogs in the wheels failed. There's this one carrier that's a fool, and so the whole group is performing poorly. Now, it says, even though he was upasita vritta, even though he had a lot of education, upasita vritta api, then, but still, nisarga. So nisarga, samsarga, his own nisarga, his own nature, he didn't contact this flaw from anybody else. It's his own nature. His own nature caused the arising of Ishat and Manyut, caused him to get a little bit annoyed. So educated people, intelligent people, they don't get annoyed because they're very objective about everything. That's interesting. But the trait of getting annoyed, actually, once I brought this to my teacher, and his response was, that's natural. We get annoyed all the time because people are dumb. But they don't. The educated person really doesn't get moved by the anger, and the anger doesn't become the motivator of their actions. But the king has a nature to him. He has a nisarga, and the force of that nature makes his anger come up. And so the force of his nature as a boss, a leader, etc., is going to rajasa avrita mati. It's going to cover his education. It's going to cover up his learning. It's going to cover up his wisdom. So he's described as like a fire that's covered in ash. So like the smoldering bits of fire that are at the end, underneath all this ash. You can see that there's something there, but it's not really active. Similarly, Rahugana was very educated, but he didn't really act on that education. Secondly, Bharata himself is also described as a fire covered in ash in terms of his avipashta brahmatejasa. His spiritual potency was occluded by his very dull appearance. He just looks like an animal. And that hides his intelligence and wisdom and spiritual depth. So it's an interesting thing because now the two people that are like covered ashes are going to interact with each other. So he's now going talk. First thing, when his palanquin shook, he just called out to all the carriers in general. Then they replied, it's this guy's fault, so now he's going to talk directly to Bharata. Aho kashtam bratri vyaktam uru prashanto dirgam advanam ekaivo hivan suchiran nati pivana samahango jarasa chopatruta bhavan sakhe na evapara ete sanghathinati bahu vipralabdopi avidyaya rachita dravya guna karmasya swacharma kevalavare ke kalevare avastani samsthana visheshe aham mameti anjaropita mithya pratyayo brahmabhutas tushnim shibikam purvavad uvaha. So now the king, the way intelligent people express their anger is kind of like sarcasm. The king gets super sarcastic right now. And he says, aho kashtam bratra, my brother. You're not my slave, you're my brother. My brother, oh, I'm such a kashta. I'm such a pain for you. I'm such a bother. Sorry about that. Obviously, Vyaktam, obviously, Uru Prashanto, you're so tired. I made you so tired. I'm so sorry. He just joined. They just got him. So the king's being super sarcastic. You're very tired. Dirgam avanam. You've been on this road for a really long time. Ekaivo hivan. You're carrying my heavy butt all by yourself. Sakhe. Oh, my friend. Oh, friend. These other guys, they're not helping you at all. Na evaporate sangatina. These other people, they're useless. You've been doing all the work. And so you're so tired from being with us for such a long time. And look at you. You're old. Jarasachu pudruta. You're unhealthy. Nasahamanango. Natipiva. You're not very strong. But we made you do all this work. Just completely sarcastic. Oh, friend, you're not even very strong or very healthy and are quite elderly, and your teammates are no help at all. Despite these very insulting, sarcastic words, the spiritualist kept calm and quiet, tushnin, and continued carrying the palanquin exactly as he had been. Tushnim, shibikam purvad. Uvaha. Just like he didn't change a bit. He didn't get nervous. He didn't react to the king. Nor did he change his behavior about how he was walking. It just was as if he didn't even hear the king. Why? And then also the text explains why is he not afraid of the fourth remedy from the man god. God-man would be better, right? Instead of man-god, God-man might be better. Why wasn't he scared? These other people are super scared. They're probably terrified right now. But he's just like completely unfazed. So it explains, avidya rachita dravya guna karmasya swacharma kalevare avastani samstana visheshe aham mameti andhyaropita mithya pratyayo brahmabhutas. He was unaffected by the unreal imposition of I and mine onto an external body, composed of a combination of elements, qualities, actions, and motivations under the catalyst of ignorance, giving rise to false preferences. So this is what Bhagavatam does a lot, is they just hide some super deep yoga philosophy in like one off statement in the middle of some exciting story. But then there's a lot of stuff to understand in just this one statement. So first of all, There's the word which you hear a lot, aham mama. Aham is I, and mama is mine, stuff that belongs to me. So everybody has a sense of I, and therefore everybody has a sense of mine. But there's a situation that's described as imposition or superimposition that's called aropa. When you label something onto something else or stick something onto something else, doesn't naturally belong there, but you put it on top. That's called aropa. So what we all do is we take our sense of I and we put it on top of something. And we take our sense of mine and we put it on top of the things that are related to that. And that's how we feel fulfilled. Because we have a sense of I. We are a sense of I. And we wouldn't fulfill if it doesn't have something to define it. So what do we generally put aham mama onto? We generally put it onto something called a kalevara, which means something that we evolved out, some kind of a body. So basically speaking, we put our I and mine onto our body. We put the I into the body, and then we put the mind into the things that are the mind, M-I-N-E, onto things related with the body. This is my computer because this is me. It's not your computer because you're in that body, and this one right here belongs to this body. This is my house. This is my neighborhood. This is my sore throat. This is my headache. Positive and negative. Negative things too. This is my cancer. This is my illness. Because it belongs to my body, and that body is I. But what is it really? The body is a samsthana, a potion, a mixture of a whole bunch of elements and things and fates and destinies. Rachita dravya guna karmashaya. It's a whole bunch of combinations of dravya, atoms, molecules, stuff. Guna, qualities of those things, certain colors, certain smells, certain textures. Karma, which means actions and momentum of actions, or habits, ways of behaving, which are a result of the gunas. And then asha, which means objectives, desires, aspirations, which are a result of and drive the karmas. So the way that a person who's objective sees the body is, this is a whole big potion of stuff, and it's like my machine and I can occupy it, but it's not I. I'm not the whole combination of all this stuff, but I can use it. So the difference is, it's like if you die in the video game. It's slightly annoying because you put your eye into that character on the screen. And it's more annoying really because you can't accomplish your ashaya. You can't accomplish your objective. Because your character died, because you died. You know, like the screen, the black screen and then the red letters, you died. But think about the way you feel when that happens in a video game compared to the way you feel or probably will feel when you die. Why is it different? It's because you know that's not really me. That's just my avatar or something. That's just my whatever that I'm using to do what I want to do in that world. That's not even really my world. But if we're objective, then that's just a video game within a video game. If we're objective, then that's really exactly what is going on with our physical bodies as well. And so people who realize that and have had more and more experiences confirming it, they get about as panicked, in danger to their physical existence as we do when we get, in danger in a video game. You do get some effect because you're putting something in there, but it's not very, very strong. And yeah. So that's, if another character comes up and insults your video game character, it bothers you a little bit. But if somebody comes up into your face in your living room and insults you, that bothers you a lot. Why? Because we think that the guy in the living room or the woman in the living room is really me, and the one on the screen isn't really me. But neither one of them is really you. They're both exactly the same. It's just that the one down, one more step is the video game within the game. And so it's easier for the person playing the game to see that the person playing the game is not really me. So Bharata feels that way. So when the king is threatening him, insulting him, etc., he's like, whatever, I'm not into this game anymore. This game is about to finish and I'm just finishing it up. Who cares? Just get done with this. So it doesn't bother him, and he just keeps thinking, I'm just doing things the way I do things. Next statement. Atapuna swashibikayam vishamangatayam prakupita vacha ruhugana kimida mare tvam jivan mrito mam kadarti krita Bharati shashanam ati charasi pramattasya chate karomi chikichtam dandapaniriva janataya yata prakritim swam pajishaya iti. This again, I really want to see this, and from the director of Bahubali or something. This is so, Bollywood is so dramatic. When his palanquin continued to lurch about, there's no change in his behavior, then he got furious. Prakupita. And he shouted, Arr! What is this? Kimmidam are. What is this? Are. You are Jivan Mrito. You are the walking dead. You are a dead man. You're a walking dead man. And that's a very common phrase. I remember hearing that all the time. You're a walking dead man. What does that mean? That means I'm going to kill you. You're already dead. Tvam jivan mrito mam kat arti kritya. Because you kat arti krita, you disrespected me. This guy is really into his role as being a king. He's really into it. And that he just disrespected, what kind of an idiot. He just captured somebody and enslaved them and then insulted them. And now you claim that you've been disrespected. But that's what you will feel like if you think you are a king. So he says, you're going to disrespect me? Then you are a living dead man. And then he says, oh, but it is proper for me to act like this. Oh, I'm not a barbarian, but I'm going to kill you because it's proper. So he gives some reasoning why it's proper. Bratri shashanam. This is called discipline of the student. This is called discipline of the slave, discipline of the junior, discipline of the dependent. Bratri shashana. Ati charasi pramatasya. If the bratri goes ati charasa, too far, because pramata, because they're stupid, because they're foolish, then the master has to smack them back into place. You overstep your bound. Ati charasi. Ati chara. You overstep your bound. So I have to shasha. I have to rein you in. You're not listening to the king. You are overstepping your bound. You do not have that much freedom. And so I am going to rein you in. Te chate karomi. Chikishtam. That's exactly what I'm going to do. But I'm going to do it the way Dandapani does it. Who's Dandapani? Dandapani is the supreme Danda person. What's Danda? Danda was the fourth remedy. Danda is punishment. So who's Dandapani? Dandapani is Bharani Eshwara Yama, the god of death. That's Dandapani, the god of death. So what does he say? I'm going to punish you like the god of death. It means I'm going to kill you. Unless or until yata prakritim swam bajishaya. And this is always these people, these arrogant people, they always say shit like this. You don't know your place. Accept your place. You're out of line. Get back in your place. Swaprakriti means in your own position. You are my slave. If you don't accept that you are my slave, you're going to be dead. Until you accept what you are, swaprakritim bhajishaya, you're in a lot of danger because I'm going to kill you. You are a living dead man if you disrespect me. A dependent must be chastised if he foolishly becomes too deviant, and that is what I will do. I will punish you the way the Lord of Death punishes people until you accept your proper place. Nice guy. Last verse for today. Evam bhavabadam api bashamanam. Why did he say such terrible things? Abadabashna. Evam bahu abada bashanam api nara devabhimanam. Because of his ego of thinking that he is God-man. Rajasa tamasa anu vidhena madena. Tiraskrita shesha bhagavat priya niketam pandita maninam sa bhagavan brahmano brahmabhuta sarva bhuta suridatma yogeshvara charyayam nadi vyutpana matim smayamana iva vigata smaya idam aha. He said these terrible things because the ego of being a man-god inebriates the mind, makes you drunk by nourishing rajas and tamas, and makes one want to chastise even those who are abodes of infinite affection for the all-attractive. What does a king do? A king enforces law. So if you think I am the king, then you punish people that deviate from the law. That's your role. So that's why it's not a very wise thing to rush out and try to become the king. Because that is a very polluting or toxic identity that makes you very harsh and critical towards other people. It can. I mean, also, what is the king? The king is the father. What is the father? The king is a father on a social scale. What is the father? The father is the one who supports everybody. The father is the one that makes sure everybody eats. The father is the one that makes sure everybody's safe. The father is the one that makes sure everybody is okay. And is able to do the things that they want to do. That's what a father does. But the father is also the one who's scary, and the father is also the one who gets angry, and the father is also the one who, sets rules and punishes and all that stuff. So there's the two sides to that authority figure. This king is infected by that ego of being that authority figure. So he's just in the mood of being the boss and having people do what he says to do. So he's not realizing how much he's overstepping his bounds at times. How much it's not okay just because you're the king to just pull somebody off the road and force them into labor. Just because you're the king, it's not okay to be arrogant and sarcastic with people. Just because you're the king, it's not okay to just kill people that you don't like. But he thinks it is, he feels it is, because he's the king. And so, to his great misfortune, or which will actually be his fortune, now all of a sudden he's trying to discipline a person that is way above him. He's trying to, a person described as Ashesha Bhagavat Priya Niketa, the home of love. You're being violent to a person who is a storehouse of love. And you can't see that because you're the boss, the dad, the father, the authority. The person is the storehouse of infinite love for the infinitely attractive person. It's the most lovable, loving thing. And we feel like he needs to be, punished, whipped, whatever it is, killed. Because he won't carry your chariot the right way. Then let him go. What is your problem? He's Pandita Mani. He's a jewel of scholars. Then that blessed educator. He's a Brahmana, an educator. You can't... The way the Vedic society is run, the educators are more respected than the kings. If a king cannot talk out of line to an educator, to a teacher, you can't do that. It doesn't matter if you're the king or not. Bharata is definitely, obviously, at least by his family, an educator. He's even wearing a thread. I guess the king thought it was just a costume or something. Or maybe they took it off him when they sacrificed him to Kali. But, that's way out of line. And that blessed educator, the jewel of scholars, a spiritual being who loved everyone. How is he going to react to this kind of treatment from Bharata? It's so glorious how he reacts. He's okay with it. Like I said, something bad's going to happen to my character in this game that I don't even care about anymore. Oh. He doesn't get all, why are you insulting me? Ba 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 ba. He is smaya mana. Eva. He seems to be very carefree. It seems like he's smiling. That's weird. I mean, this would really, they could really make a great movie. This really fits with the Indian dramatic aesthetic. I would really like to see an Indian director make this into a movie. Smayamani, he's just happy. But he's not smiling. It says, Vigata Smaya Idam. He had a carefree or happy feeling to him, but with a distinct absence of pride. Like usually we feel like, I'm above this. And that's why sometimes we would be able to smile even when someone is insulting us or something, because this person is such a fool. And you feel superior to the person by smiling and showing that you're impervious. But Shuka goes out of his way to say that's not the way that Bharata looked. He didn't look like he was above the king or anything. He didn't look like he was smiling, yet it seemed like he was smiling in his mind. Because he's happy, not because he's egotistical. And so he's now going to speak. He's going to say something. Idam aha. That's wild. Bharata, I don't know how old he is at this point, but he's got to at least be in his 30s. He's probably in his 30s. Late 20s, early 30s. He hasn't said anything to anybody, I don't think. Very few words. He's said a couple of things to his brothers, maybe. He just doesn't talk. People think he's a mute. Now, he's all of a sudden going to have an elaborate, multi-chapter conversation with Rahugana, the king. That's really interesting. There's something about the king that inspired Bharata to open up. And what is it? It's that the king is actually interested in education, actually. He's not a very good example of an educated person, but he's interested in learning. That's what he's talking about, samsarika dosha and all this stuff. He likes learning. Bharata senses that. More than anybody else he's met, this guy likes learning. So he's acting like an idiot right now, but it's okay, I'll teach him. All right. So that's what's coming up. I think it's going to be 3 chapters or so of Bharata finally giving a spiritual discourse. The whole thing that we heard about Bharata, there's been very little revelation. Like he hasn't really said anything, or there hasn't been any quotes of his thoughts that really reveal his philosophy, except for a little bit when he was deciding to take care of the deer. So finally we're going to, this great spiritualist hasn't really given us any spiritual lesson, besides his behavior, which of course is a huge lesson in itself. So finally that's going to happen. So the main disclosure of philosophy from Bharata is to the king Rahugana, who's quite an idiot. Not an idiot, but quite an asshole. But we'll see how Rahugana will change. What's going to happen when Rahugana all of a sudden realizes that this guy who he's threatening to kill is like the greatest guru. All right. Any questions? Would people who sort out the logic like a Brahmana be a good king? Not really. Actually, so this is also an important point. I find is misrepresented often. Misrepresentation is that a Brahmana can't do a Shudra's job. Actually, the way that Bharata is walking, some people commenting on it say, this shows that you shouldn't ask a Brahmana to do a Shudra's job. So Shudra means like a physical laborer. But actually, literally, Shudra means a person who follows an order. But typically that means you get employed in some kind of simple work. Do this, do that. So it's, practically speaking, it means a physical laborer. And Brahmana means somebody that's understanding Brahman, spirit, philosophy, education, etc., knowledge. So some people say, see, if you put a Brahmana to work carrying a palanquin, it doesn't go well. But that is really inaccurate. Bharata didn't carry the palanquin the wrong way because it was a Brahmana. Brahmana carried the palanquin the wrong way because he was a spiritualist, which is not identical. And he carried it the wrong way because he was Bharata, because he's Bharata. He's exactly the Bharata type of spiritualist. Actually speaking, if a Brahmana can't do a Shudra's work, then how is a Brahmana a Brahmana? What? You're super smart and you can't make a brick wall? You're going to tell me that you can figure out the motion of celestial bodies, but you can't lay bricks on a straight line. That makes no sense. So obviously, and what the Veda literally spells out, and the Bhagavatam is going to actually spell it out as well, if it hasn't already. A Brahmana can do anybody's job. A Brahmana could be a king. A Brahmana could be a business person. A Brahmana could be a farmer. A Brahmana could be an employee, a laborer, or anything. Of course, a Brahmana could do anything, but it's a waste for a Brahmana to spend their time laying a brick wall when they could be figuring out how to improve the technology of the civilization or something. It's a waste. It's not impossible. So could a Brahmana be a king? Or should a Brahmana be a king? Of course they can. And the sages, the Brahmanas from Vena's time, in Prithu's story, they considered doing it. Of course they can, but it's a waste. Because the fewest people can do what a Brahmana does. So to take a person who could do what a Brahmana does and make them do what more commonly people are able to do is a waste of resources. In a situation where there's nobody else to do it, the Brahmana will do it. If there's nobody around who can be a manager and a leader in a king, the Brahmana will take that role, but they'll get out of that role as soon as they can, so that they can go to their studies. The problem that the Brahmanas have with being a king, well, the reason why it's a waste and it spoils the Brahmana, is because the king is always highly preferential. The king prefers his kingdom over the other person's kingdom, but the Brahmana doesn't. A Brahmana is non-preferential. They don't value any one person over any other person, except in terms of who they have duties towards this person, then that person gets valued. But if the duty is defined towards another person, then they accept their duty towards that person. They have no inherent biases, whereas kings have strong inherent biases. So people that are intelligent on the level of Brahmanas, they don't like to function as Kshatriyas. They can, but they don't like to. All right, guys, so I think I need to go. Thank you very much. I don't, did that explain it? They would be a great king, but the way that you get this to actually work, what you're hoping for, Suraj, is I wish that we could have. Wait, Jonathan, let me just advise something on this. I don't think that you can contact somebody on Discord if they're not already like sharing a server with you or something like that. So I think if you want people to be able to join your Discord, you can get a link to your server, and you could go ahead and post that, or you can put the server code, the server join code, and then people could just add it. But let me get back to this. A person who has logic like a Brahmana but power like a king. Well, that's what the kings are supposed to be. But the way that Vedic society worked that out is that the person who's powerful like a king always respects and defers to the person who's intelligent like a Brahmana. So what happens by having that relationship in place, the kingdom gets ruled as if it was ruled by a Brahmana, but the Brahmanas don't actually have to get involved with enforcing laws, dealing with palaces, dealing with armies, etc. Because the king is using the Brahmana for their decision making and the policy making. But so you see, it works out just fine. The Brahmana actually does run the society without actually being the literal head of the society. Okay, guys.